Good evening.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Aussie Witch, Standing Stones, and Crazy Witch,
Hey, Crazy Witch, how you doing?
Rebecca.
Rebecca.
So, how are you doing, Mr. Carroll?
Well, doing okay. Just doing all right, I guess. Just plugging along, getting it done, slowly but surely. When you get older, it takes you a while to get around to it, but you do finally, eventually.
Right,
Most of the
right.
time. Most of the time.
So, how was your weekend?
Well, it's very fast, unfortunately. That's the way weekends go, isn't it? But seems like you turn around and it's Monday again before you know it. But I got a lot done this weekend, definitely on some things. And doing a lot of outside work, stuff like that. But it's bad weather for that, and it's very hot.
Right. And we
So
was just talking
yeah,
about that. It's like you said, it's the humidity, right?
oh yeah, that's what makes it more miserable. The heat's bad enough. That's sort of that's what I said. Somebody told somebody the other day. You kind of feel like what a lobster goes through when he's being boiled. That's what humidity is.
Right, right. No, I had a good weekend. I can't complain. Never have enough time in the day, like we talked about. So yeah.
Uh-huh.
So we
Well,
are,
I know you're always a busy fellow there, Chris. Definitely.
yeah, I didn't like you. So we
Mhm.
are covering War on Christianity, part
Part two.
two.
Part two. Yes, sir. It is a big subject, so it takes a while to get around it. Some of it, we are scratching the surface, though. But like I've often said, Chris, our show sometimes ends up in the headlines. And recently I think I sent you a picture of that as I think it was a Porsche commercial. I think it was shot overseas somewhere where they actually uh, in behind the commercial there was supposed to be a statue of Christ, a very famous statue, and they actually took the Christ part of the statue out. You see the pedestal, but that's gone. So that's just the
Yes,
way they
yeah,
whitewash. They whitewash Christianity that way, and that's just one incident. It happens a lot, a lot more than people really realize. And that's the insidious part of this war on Christianity. It's fought in the shadows a lot, but now even more so than we've ever seen before, Chris. And you know what I'm about to say. It's coming out more in the open. They're just getting to the point where they really don't care anymore. They're not trying to hide anything. Uh, that shows you the extent of their veracity in this kind of stuff. They think that nobody can touch them and nobody can stop them. You know.
yeah, it is, and it's very discerning,
It
and
is.
uh,
Well,
but
that's one of the very
people don't really pay
people don't
attention,
know.
and
They
it,
don't understand him.
they
But
don't.
that's what this country was founded on, the very distinct principles of freedom of religion. And these are enemies, like I said before, of truth and light. They're also enemies of the Constitution. I think you and I both have taken an oath back in the past to defend that Constitution against all
Yes, we have.
enemies. And that's very important. People don't realize that your freedoms hang by a thread, people. If you're not very careful, one day you're going to wake up and you're going to wake up to a nightmare. It's a real living nightmare. And that's what this stuff is leading up to, definitely. And that's what the war on Christianity is all about. It's a war on your freedom. You might as well look at it that way. Even if you're not a Christian or profess to be a Christian, if you're atheistic or whatever, you got to remember, you got to recognize that you have certain freedoms that you hold dear. And we who believe in Christianity believe all freedom comes from God. So this is a direct personal attack on God, not just the war on Christianity itself on us, but it's a direct attack against our Creator as well. We got to remember that. Yes, that's true, Crazy Rich. They're attacking all religions and spiritual beliefs, not just one, because it's freedom. See, that they are enemies of true freedom. And we've got to always kind of keep that in mind. That's what we're dealing with.
That's
But
absolutely true.
tonight I'm going to talk about an interesting aspect of all this. I'm going to get into deep into demonology here, folks, and not the kind where you call up demons. No, we don't want to do that. This is the study of how the demonic works. That's the other part of demonology. Um, um, a lot of church people get hung up on that. By the way, they say, What are you talking about raising demons or something here?" No, no, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the scholarly point of view on demonology. And tonight I'm going to talk about some very interesting aspects. So you guys out there might want to get your pen and pencil out and jot down some of these things, because there's not going to be a test after this, but uh, you might want to jot down some of this stuff to remember it, because it is getting very deep into some of this stuff. But I don't know if people out there realize that there are certain stages of demonic possession. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about tonight. We're going to talk about some other stuff too, but we're going to do that to begin with. These different stages, I call them, well, they are 7 steps to possession. And I'm going to read you off a little list on them right now. And we're going to go through this list and talk about each stage that we're going to be talking about tonight. But the first stage is invitation. You have to invite these things, whether you know it or not, into your life, these evil influences. And you can do this in certain ways, and we're going to talk about that. But step 1 is invitation. Step 2 is influence. Once the invite has been given and that comes in, they're sort of like you having company in your house. You know, somebody comes to see you and talk. They can have a certain influence over you sometimes, and you can do the other. It can go the other way. You can have a certain influence over them too. But that's what the rapport communication is all about. Okay. So that's the second step, is influence. The third step, when demonic forces come against you, is oppression. Now that's a very interesting stage in this. My saintly grandmother used to say this. Okay. If the devil don't bother you at least a little bit, there's something really, really wrong with you. Okay, you're probably on the wrong side. You're probably not doing the right thing here, because if he's not bothering you, you're evidently in his camp. That's what she meant, and that's what oppression about. That is spiritual attack, and we're going to be talking about that too. The fourth step is spiritual intimidation. That's when it starts working on you through fear. It gets you fearful, it gets you negative, it gets you anxious. Anxiety reaches a high level. It works on you through intimidation, spiritual intimidation, although it can use physical objects to intimidate you with too, like things moving when they shouldn't and stuff like that, paranormal activity. But that is it, the spiritual intimidation. The fifth step is what I mentioned earlier, UDDI, under direct demonic influence. This is a sort of first stage to actual possession. And it can come in varying stages. There could be more than 10 different stages of this UDDI, okay? But let me give you a quick illustration. It could be like somebody going, God forbid, shooting up a school. And when it's done, they think that, well, what did I do that for? What have I done? They don't realize what's happened. You've seen that a lot, Chris, and I have too. During criminal investigations, people say, I don't know why I done that. I don't know why I done that. Something took over me, and that happens a lot more than people think. And that's part, and we're going to get into that too, UDDI. Number 6, step 6, is possession. That's where they actually inhabit you from the inside, okay? But there can be many degrees of that. It can be so, you won't even know it. Sometimes you won't even exhibit some signs. But then you reach stage 7, which is the most worst stage of all. That's full, 100% possession. That's a very, very bad state to be in, definitely. And all of this, folks, leads to the end, which is spiritual and physical death. Okay, that's what all this ends up to. So let's go through those steps right quick. If you have any questions, Chris, jump in whenever you want, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, invitation. How do you invite these things into your life? It can be simple things just like opening the door when there's a knock. I tell people, look before you open the door. If there's nobody there, don't open the door. It's not a good idea, okay? Because sometimes these things have entered in people's houses this way, okay? It's not that far fetched that evil spirits will do that. They play their little tricks. They have their little traps and snares they like to play with. So remember that. Be careful who and what you invite into your life. And if you live a negative life, and I've talked about this before, then you invite these negative spirits in even more. This attracts them, like flies to sugar kind of a thing, or bees to honey, whatever words you want to use on that, whatever phrase. The whole thing is, the more negative output you put out, the more they attract these negative influences, because that's what they feed off of. We've got to remember that. It's very important. Don't feed the beast. Okay? Do not feed this thing, because it's only going to get bigger and stronger and finally overwhelm you. It's like the proverbial Frankenstein monster. Don't turn it loose. Don't give it strength. We used to have a saying in law enforcement, Chris. It's one thing to get shot at. It's very bad enough if you gave them the bullets.
That is correct.
You don't want to do that. You don't want your enemy to have that upper hand on you. Don't help them. Don't help them out. But now this invitation that people, they invite these things through their lifestyle many times, which can be drug and alcohol abuse, and that includes medication abuse. Many times, a lot of people overlook that fact that they could be opioid use, stuff like that, where they misuse medications. Pain pills are very good. They can help us live a better life, but if we abuse them, we're looking for big trouble there, and they can very badly affect you physically, but spiritually as well. We've got to remember that. That's a big part of our being, is our spirituality, So
Right.
the lifestyles that we live, we're party animals. We go out, bed hopping, going party to party, using the cocaine, doing all the wrong things. Do you expect things to turn out right, folks? No, it's not. It's not going to turn out right. It's probably only going to get worse. Definitely. And there's a lot of people 6 foot under now. They wish they hadn't done that. They took the wrong road. And that's what this invitation thing is all about. Do not invite these things into your life by your lifestyle, your mindset, which is set on negativity, at doom and gloom all the time thing. You'd have no happiness in your life. You're lonely. You're cut off. That's what these things want to do. They want to isolate you, cut you off from help of any kind, whether it be your friends, family, co-workers, whatever the case. They want to isolate you. Because of that old saying, it's much better to what? Divide and then conquer.
Right.
And that's what they want to do. They want to divide you out of society, put you in a corner right where they want you so they can attack you, wear you down, and conquer you like one nation would conquer another nation. That's just the way they work. That's the principles they use. And they don't change. I'll tell you why, because these things work. They're not going to do something that doesn't work. They're smart. They're a lot smarter than people think they are. They're not going to do and use techniques that do not work. Okay, that's just the way it goes. And I've often told this to people, many times, that when I tell you to do something, it's not because I think it's going to work. It's because I know it does. I know it's going to work. Yeah, I've seen it work. If we do it the right way, it's going to work for you. You don't do something that doesn't work. You're just wasting time and really playing into the hands of your enemies. Okay, don't forget that. But now that's that invitation thing. Now that influence is part of that invitation. Once they get that invitation, once they get that foothold in your life, then you get that step 2 going. You get that influence. And what is this influence? Well, we suffer through a lot of an influence today from media, constantly media, sports, whatever you want to name, government, of course, corporation. You've got all this influence going on constantly, all the time. Do this, do that, do this. You need this, you need that. You got to have this to live. You won't be happy if you don't buy this. That influence keeps pushing at us all the time. And there comes a point where we have to fight back against this influence, because if we don't, it will overwhelm us like a tide. You ever walk out in the tide of the ocean? It will take you down if you're not careful, you know?
Right.
You don't want to be overcome by this influence. That's what this is. It's just like a tide rolling in against you. And they're very insidious with this influence, because a lot of times it's not in your face. It's very subtle. It comes from around. Like I saw, like a sidewinder snake. He never attacks you straight on. He kind of comes at you sideways. So it makes you harder to defend against him. Well, that's what these demonic forces do. That's the way they operate. That's the par for the course. And that's what they're going to do with this influence. They're going to try to influence and mold you into the way they want you to go, just like cattle through a pen. They want to force you through there and head you in the direction they want you to go, which is not going to be a good, folks. It's going to be a dead end road, okay? And it's not going to end good. But that's the influence. And then you got oppression. That's when they really start working on you. Stage 3. They really start working on you. Things start going bad for you. You know, your luck turns awful. It's just like doom and gloom from one thing to the next. You all start asking what else is going to go wrong here. You know, there used to be an old saying, "Trouble comes in threes," but when they start oppressing you, it's going to come in 3,000 times. Okay, it's not going to just be 3, folks, because they start laying it on you. And I've had people come to me and say, "Dennis, what's wrong? I'm living under a curse here. Nothing's going right for me. I lose my job. I lost my girlfriend. I lost my husband," or whatever the case may be. They said, "What's going on?" And I'm living like under a curse. And yes, you are. Because this is a curse of what? Oppression, many times. It can be a curse too. That's another program for another time. But there is the curse of oppression. And that's what these things are working on. Why are they doing that? Simply because, and this makes perfect sense when you think about it, they're trying to wear you down. That's what they want to do. They want to wear you down and get you right where they want to, then weaken you as much as possible. Okay. That's what the 3rd stage is. The 4th stage is that spiritual intimidation. Like I said earlier, they can start doing paranormal stuff, but they can also come at you in different ways. They can make you see things sometimes, and you start doubting your own sanity. You know, you start wondering, what's going on with me? Am I losing my mind? Am I going crazy? They do this through fear. They start building that fear and that anxiety up in you, that negativity I talked about earlier. They're wanting to wear you down even more and punch holes in you with this. Okay, they're ready to punch these holes in you with this spiritual intimidation, because what is one of the most strongest emotions in the universe, Chris? Fear.
Yes,
Fear,
it
you know.
is.
Yeah, fear does it. And what is the enemy of faith? Fear.
Yes, it
Fear is the
is.
enemy of faith. And that's what they're out against. These are enemies of faith, folks. And that's why they use fear and this spiritual intimidation. But it can be physical intimidation too. Okay, don't forget that. And there can be certain people that they put in your lives that will dominate you. And I've seen a lot of husbands and wives go through this, boyfriends and girlfriends. You hooked up with the wrong person, and they can be like practicing the dark arts or something. You don't even know what's going on. They're not good people. They're not good actors. They can also figure into this intimidation. That's the way it works. So the demonic not only can come against you with paranormal power, but with physical powers of other people. They can use people against you. I call them snakes and scorpions. That's what they are. They're put in your life to just trip you up. Basically, that's what it is. It's all a trap. Okay, you got to remember that. And that's in spiritual intimidation. Step 4. Step 5 is very interesting. UDDI. That's why I call it under direct demonic influence. Once they've got this fear over you, this power, this hold over you, then they begin to really influence you from the inside out. That's the interesting thing. The other influence I talked about back in step 2 is from the outside. Okay. This UDDI is the first stage of possession, folks. and it's coming from within this time. This influence is coming from within. And that's when they begin to wear you down physically and start saying maybe drinking more alcohol or drugging, abusing drugs, or sex, pornography, whatever it is that your weakness is. This UDDI begins to use you like as if you were taking a drug or as if you were under the influence of alcohol. And Chris, you and I both have seen a lot of people under influence of a lot of things like that over the years, and they're not in their right minds in many ways. Why do you think they call alcohol spirits? Okay, they're
Right.
like a spirit getting in you and taking over. And there are alcoholic spirits too, by the way. We'll have to talk about that one night. There are demonic spirits that use alcohol in that respect and drugs as well, whatever the case may be. Anyway, this is that UDDI, and it's a very dangerous stage because you're under this influence, but it hasn't completely taken you over yet. But this is the stage where I said about people that go in and do the mass shootings and murders and all that. I knew a guy one time that killed his girlfriend, cut her up in pieces, went home, took a shower, lay down, took a nap. If that's not under direct demonic influence, I don't know what is. Uh, when you get like that in that situation, folks, you're in the first stage of possession. Okay, they've got you about right where they want you, but now they're ready to really move in, and that's where step 6 comes in: possession. That's when they begin to take over even more and more, till really, and I've said this, I've used this terminology before. It's like you're not driving your car anymore. Somebody else is driving your car and you're in the back seat. And that's what possession is, okay? You're in the back seat, but the demons are driving your body. They're driving you, okay? You're not in possession of, think about how horrible that is, what I'm about to say. You're not in possession of your own body anymore. It belongs to somebody else. Think about that. That's a bad state to get in, but there's even one worse than that, and that's step 7, full possession. That's where they push you down to nothing inside of yourself. You're eclipsed completely by these demonic forces. And where are you at then? You are in the worst state of all. Why? Because they have now prepared you for the end: physical and spiritual death. That's what this all comes down to do. It's your destruction, folks. That's what this is all about. I've had people come to me, and I've talked about this before, Chris. Oh, there's a demon in my house. There's a demon in my life. Can I learn to live with it? What would you tell them, Chris?
No.
You're crazy if you think you can do that, because what? It's gonna not come out good at all for you, definitely, because they're out to get you, folks. They're out to destroy you in whatever way possible, and they'll use all their bag of tricks to do it. Okay, and that's what all this possession, these 7 steps are for. You've got to really, really safeguard yourself against these things, because this is the way your enemy works. The Bible says he goes about as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Now, I don't know about you, but I'd rather pet a house cat than a lion, because you might come out better in the end, but the lion's going to eat you up. That's all. I mean, you can't blame him. He's just being a lion, okay? But you got to understand what you're dealing with, what force you're dealing with. And that's why it's good to remember these 7 steps. I'm going to run over them again for you right quick. Step 1, invitation. Step 2, influence. Step 3, oppression. Step 4, spiritual intimidation. Step 5, UDDI, under direct demonic influence. Number 6, possession. And number 7, full possession. Now, in that 6th stage, but I want to clarify this. In that stage 6, possession means there's still a lot of hope for you. The church could help you. If you get the right help, you can be helped. And even with full possession, which is much, much harder than just regular possession, folks, you might still have a chance. Okay, I'm not going to rule that out for you. The Lord help you if you get in that full possession, though, because you're in some bad, bad, deep water. I have seen this very rare though. Full possession most of the time is not a common thing. Okay, but a lot of times I've seen this happen, and I'm gonna say this: this is freaky, but it's true. For you to reach that stage 7, you really have to invite or want this stuff in your life in many aspects. And that sounds crazy, doesn't it? But some people do that. Some people want this stuff in their lives. Some people want to hook up with these dark, evil, spiritual forces. That's not good. That's not good because eventually they will delight in your destruction, no matter what. But some people want this, and I think those are the people that are more fully open to full possession than some other people might be that may be trying to fight it, you know.
Yeah.
But that's the way that ball bounces.
It makes you wonder a lot.
Yeah, it does.
Why they choose that path. What makes them think that is okay, and what are they wanting out of it?
I think they're blind spiritually, Chris. I think they're spiritually blind to the real truth of what's really going on. It's what they want to be. That's what the Bible says. There's a way that seems right to a man or woman, as the case may be, but the way thereof is death. Some people think they're doing the right thing, That's like I think I saw somewhere the other day, it said this generation is getting too comfortable with going to hell. That is very true. Let's not get comfortable with that idea, folks. We don't want to go there. We don't want to doom our lives. I believe very much you have only one true life. You don't throw that away. It is a gift from your Creator. You don't throw it away. And you certainly don't turn it over to other people or other beings that you shouldn't. That is how you can, sort of speak, sell your soul. You go over to that dark side. You want it. You want that power or whatever it is they're offering you. You're open to it. And therefore, when you open yourself up completely, they will take you completely. Don't ever forget that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't know. I still don't understand the concept of it, why people are drawn to the dark side. So.
Well, I don't know if you've known a lot of women like this. Some women like the bad boys. They're kind of
they do.
intrigued by the bad boys. They're cool, and they find out in the end that the bad boys not as good as they thought they were. They beat them up and kick them around and all that stuff and abuse them. But here's the thing about it, Chris. I think some people are inherently self-destructive. They have a self-destructive spirit about them. They don't care. They kind of want to burn out. They don't want to go out slowly. They want to burn out quick. And some of them get their wish, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. And how many times we always heard, but he loves me. I love him.
I love him. He loves me. That's not love, folks. That's not real love. That's some kind of weird thing you got in your mind. That's not the real thing. And that's the way these spiritual forces work, though. They can do that to your mind. With this influence and these stages I just laid out for you tonight, that's what they're working on, to overthrow your mind. They get you right where they want you. That's what this is all about. That's what this game they're playing is with you. If they can overthrow you, just like if you go into another country and overthrow their government, you can take over. And that's what they're doing. But they're going to overthrow your mind, your intellect. And remember the 4 ways that they attack you. Don't ever forget that. Physically, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. That's the 4 main avenues of attack. Oh, they got other little ways too. Don't think they don't. You got to watch out for that, but that's on your own personal basis. But those are the 4 main gateways to your soul, and you've got to guard those ways. And and I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to be talking. Matter of fact, I'm going to be doing a show Wednesday night on my other podcast, Hunting the Shadows, and you can find that incidentally. I'll put a commercial in here. You can find that incidentally on the Midnight Road YouTube channel. Okay, that's Wednesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. I'm going to be doing a program on defense against the darkness. And I'm not talking about physical darkness. I'm talking about the forces of darkness. The things you can do to prevent these things from attacking you, you and your loved ones, the way you can spiritually strengthen yourself against these things. We need to know that, folks. We need to start thinking about these things. And we may have to do a couple of shows, you and me, on that, Chris, where we can get people to strengthen themselves, to watch those four gateways against these things. Because if we don't, you know, we're going to be in big trouble. And that's very true, Robert. There's the government factor in a lot of this, and I'm not going to get too deep into that tonight. But there are forces in this world. We got to put them in two different camps: human and inhuman. And both of these forces are working together. We've got to remember that. It's very important. And they can do it technologically wise, like with AI and some of these the 5G towers and all these other things. They're in league with these forces in this world. That's the bad thing. That's what I've said before. It's bad enough when these low down, stinking, demonic spirits get on your case, but you got people helping them. Just like what we said about this 7th stage of full possession. You actually invite this, into your life. These people are working with these forces to destroy their fellow human beings. That's not good.
No, it's not.
And we got to watch out for that because, as the Bible clearly says, our enemies are the world, the flesh, and the devil. Okay? The world that's the government. The flesh, that's us. And the devil, that's them. Okay? We got to remember that very closely because we can also trip our own selves up. And that's where the Word of God comes in and shows like this and other things to help direct you the right path, not the wrong path. It's the right way to go. That's good. That's what you study on. The Bible says whatever's good and wholesome, righteous, and of good report. Think on these things. What's it telling you? That positivity you've got to put in your life. You've got to grab a hold of that to fight back against these negative forces. That's just pure and simple. Makes common sense when you think about it. Because that's the way these things are going to work against you. And we need to do all these things. We need to understand what our enemy is up to and what he's doing so that he can't get us. He can't come up our back. I'm going to tell you something. I've had a lot of demon spirits come up my back, folks. Okay? It's not a good feeling, by the way. I've had them come up my back, but you got to watch your back, okay? You got to watch every which way, around the clock. You got to watch your 6, you got to watch your 12, you got to watch it all. Because that's just the way your enemy works, okay? And we can't let our guard down, not for one moment, because that's what they're waiting on. They're waiting on that one moment that we let our guard down. I talked to a guy one time, Chris. He was a world expert on snakes. He handled every snake that ever existed. And he handled it for years. I think when I talked to him, he was like almost 80 years old. And he handled every snake that ever was. And one day he wasn't feeling good. He come into work and he was handling a cobra. He said, I let my guard down for just 1 second. He said, I let my guard, I wasn't feeling good. I wasn't all right on my game, I let my guard down 1 second. That's all that cobra needed. Ended up in the hospital for 6 weeks or something, That's all he was looking for, and that's your enemy. He's looking for that one opportunity. That's why I say so much about the demonic. They're opportunists. They're waiting on the opportunity. Don't give it to them. And here's the thing about it, and I'll say this, and I stand behind these words. And I think God backs this up and everything else as well on this subject. They have no power over you unless you give it to them. Like I said earlier, don't feed the beast. Don't feed that monster. Don't give them that power. They have absolutely no power. I know. I've been accused by people. Oh, Dennis, you're doom and gloom. You're trying to scare us. You're trying to freak us out. No, that's not one of them. I want you to understand the nature of your enemy and respect it like you would respect a bear or a tiger. What it can do to you. You better respect it. I want you to respect your enemy, but I don't want you to be enamored of it. I definitely don't want you to fall in league with him because he's your enemy. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to give you a leg up in that saddle, spiritually speaking, against these things. You know, because I don't know if the old man in Florida, it might be him. Anyway, if you don't have this in your quiver of arrows, you're allowing the enemy to get you in a bad place. Okay, just like these 7 steps that I went over tonight. You don't want to let any of those steps be in your future. You want to guard yourself against that because an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure anytime, especially when it comes to the demonic. And I've told this to many people before, and I've said it many times. Why did you let it get to this point? You know, why did you let it get to this point? You should have done something. You know, I don't know what to do. You should have went and looked for help somewhere. Don't let it get that bad, but do not feed this beast. You don't. It has no power unless you allow that power over you. And God says you are a free agent. Your Creator created you free. Do not go under the slavery of these forces. Do not let them enslave you. Hold on to that freedom because, hey, in the end, that's all you've got, folks, is your freedom. Okay? You know, I've told that story a lot of times. It's one of my favorite stories about the preacher. You know, one day he was on the way to church and he saw that little boy on the side of the road with a bird cage. Had a couple of birds in it, full old birds, all bed razzled up. They were feathers were all messed up. And the preacher said, "Son, what you gonna do with them birds?" And the boy said, "Well, I'm gonna play with them. I'm gonna torture them a little while, and I'm gonna kill them, I guess." And the preacher said, "Oh, don't do that. Sell them to me. I'll give you $5 for them birds." He said, "$5 for these stinking old birds? You got a deal." So he gives the preacher gave him $5, and he took the birds on to church with him. He set that church up on the pew, in the church on the pew there. He set the cage up there, and he said, "Folks, I had a revelation on the way to church this morning." He said, "That's you and I in that cage. You know, that's where the devil's put us. The bad, dark forces in this world have put us in that cage. But you know what? God's all about freedom. God didn't make that cage. God doesn't want us to be in that cage. God wants us to be free, to have our own choices in this world and this universe." He said, "And I'm going to be like God today. I'm going to open the door and I'm going to set these birds free. Because you know what? They were bought with a price. It wasn't $5 like a. We were bought with a price, folks. A very bad price it had to be, but it was a price that had to be paid. We were bought with that price. Don't throw that freedom away for nothing. Don't let it be in vain, because that price was very dear. It cost our Creator, His Son, His life. That price was a very dear price to pay. Don't throw that away. Don't let that be in vain. Because that's what these forces want. That's what your true enemies of light and truth and freedom want. They want to take that away from you. Don't let them do it. You don't have to. You don't have to if you don't let them, you know. That's the interesting part of it.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yes. That's a very good point.
Uh-huh.
Very good point.
Let's see if we got any more questions out there. We're open to questions now. We question and answer part of the show here. Is there anything you don't understand about those 7 steps? Any questions you want to ask? Now's your time.
No, the only question I saw was the snake man in Florida, the reference. They want to know if that was the guy you was referencing about. That's the only person I know that handles snakes that's kind of famous.
Mm-hmm.
That got bit by the cobra, but I wasn't for sure.
Yeah, but he was an interesting old guy. But he was an expert, world recognized expert on serpents. And but he said it's just, you know, I talked to a lion tamer like that one time. lion tamer. He said, I love these lions. I love them just like they were my children, but I can't trust them. Not 1 minute can I trust them because he knowed what their nature was. That's just the way they're made. And yet, and when we know stuff like that, we oughtn't to go against the grain of common sense and logic. We need to stay the course and not fall into these traps. Definitely.
Yes. No, absolutely. Now, if you want to lead us in prayer, we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a very famous prayer tonight. One of my favorites.
Sir.
I'm gonna do the Lord's Prayer, and I'll tell you why this one of my favorites, because it is very direct and very concise. Okay, and I think it falls into line with a lot of what we've been talking about tonight, the safeguardists and all that. And I think we'll go with that. Okay.
Sure.
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Mm. So what is on the agenda for next week?
Well, next week I'm thinking about the UFO demonic connection. Yeah.
That'd be a good one.
Yeah. The UFO demonic, and there is a strong connection there, folks. Don't think they're not. Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of questionable debate about that.
Yeah.
A lot.
We may enter into the fray on that one.
So
because I tell you what, I kind of go along. I don't know if you're very familiar with a lot of these books that have been written about this over the years. To me, there's some very interesting evidence that points the way to the demonic in some of this stuff. Not all of it. You can't paint everything in this universe with a broad brush. Okay, folks, don't accuse me of that. I don't do that. But some things do lead you into certain avenues, definitely. And UFOs, I think, are one. And I saw a thing the other day on the internet. I forget where it was at. And a picture of a flying saucer, and it said, "If I mysteriously disappear, it wasn't aliens." Okay, and they gave the scripture about the rapture. So maybe we're being set up for something, folks. Like I said about last week when I did the war on Christianity, about that fake news item about they actually found the body of Jesus in the tomb, and all of this was a lie and all that. You can look for this stuff in the future, folks. They're going to come up with some very elaborate stuff, and they're going to swear it's the truth, and UFOs are going to be part of that, definitely, I think.
They actually say that allegedly we are going to be under an alien attack. It's going to be a false attack. Then the bad aliens are supposed to be the good aliens, are supposed to save us. So I don't know.
I'll tell you this right quick. I answer that question. God is a lot bigger than people think. I'm sure there are other people way out in that cosmos with all those uncountable billions of stars and planets. We're not the only ones in this universe. Some of these aliens are definitely. I just gotta question, what are they doing here? That's what we'll talk about next week.
That sounds good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully that you all have a wonderful rest of your evening, and Godspeed, and hopefully you all enjoyed the show, and we'll check you out next Sunday. And
back in this.
See you then. Take care. We love you all. Bye-bye.